Which dynasty players have fallen the most in value over the last month? We're talking about that in today's video. As always, like and subscribe to the channel. By the time you're watching this, I think we're going to be 3 or 4 days away from the NFL season. So football is here. If you're new to the channel, I make these videos around the first of every single month, just getting a feel for the dynasty market, who's rising, who's falling. We've had a lot of risers, a lot of fallers. My riser video for this month is already out. Check it out. But the faller video is today, and it is August 28th when I'm recording this, recording it a little bit earlier when it comes out. And obviously we've had training camp and preseason happen. So we see a lot of risers and a lot of fallers. It's always good. So important for you dynasty players to get a feel, to keep the dynasty market, to know how the dynasty market and how dynasty players are reacting to certain players and whether or not we should take advantage of that, both by selling high or buying low. As always, we'll start with the quarterback positions here. Not a whole lot happening on the quarterback market, especially at the top. Kenny Pickett has fallen 7 spots from QB 45 to QB 52. I mean, not really much to talk about here. Not much to talk about with the quarterbacks in general. Kenny Pickett is seemingly the QB2 for the Eagles. I do debate whether it be him or Tanner McKee. Either way, those guys aren't playing, obviously, unless Jalen Hurts gets hurt. No pun intended. Trey Lance. Man, Trey Lance from QB 39 to 44. I've been kind of on the buy Trey Lance train since middle of last year, just saying, like, this guy's going to get a chance. He's going to get a chance. He's going to get a chance. I still think there's a outside chance that someone gives him an opportunity. But man, it's looking more and more bleak. I mean, we saw the capability, like the 5 touchdowns or whatever he had in his last preseason game, but also had like the 5 interceptions or something. You know, the 70 rushing yards and multiple touchdowns and then 5 interceptions. I don't know what to say. I really don't know what to say about Trey Lance. Like, if you need to cut him, cut him. I understand. It's hard because you invested so much in him, and you know, if he gets a chance that he's going to be fantasy relevant. You just know. Even the game he had last week, I'm pulling it up right now exactly what his stats were. But even that game that he had in preseason, week 3, like for fantasy, it was fantastic. For real football, you're pulling your hair out. But for fantasy, you get a guy who throws for 300 yards, and also rushes for 90 yards with 2 total touchdowns. I don't care if he throws 5 interceptions. 5 interceptions is a little drastic, but unfortunately for fantasy football, we don't penalize interceptions enough. So interceptions are actually good for fantasy production because it means you're throwing the ball more. Drew Lock is the other one here. Not really sure why he's fallen 6 spots. Drew Lock is one of the few backups. There's a handful of backups out there that could start without the QB1 getting an injury, right? Normally the QB2 will only come in if the QB1 is injured. Drew Lock's one of those where Daniel Jones could just play bad and Drew Lock comes in. Sam Darnold and Nick Mullins, that's another situation where Nick Mullins could take over as the QB1 if Sam Darnold just doesn't play well. So I kind of like having Drew Lock on my team because he has multiple paths to becoming the starting quarterback, either by the QB1 playing poorly or by the QB1 getting injured. On to the running backs. Elijah Mitchell, he might be cut-worthy, in my opinion. He might be cut-worthy. He's fallen from RB 64 to RB 84. I put that backwards, by the way. My apologies. Just got put on season-ending IR, so he's going to continue to fall, this number. He just can't stay healthy, guys. Like, he might be cut-worthy. There's no reason. We're 3 years out now of him having his fantasy-relevant season. He was a 6th-round pick. I don't even know if he'll be on the 49ers next year. He could be out of the league. Like, the dude just can't stay healthy. I would just move on and cut him. It's getting to that point with a guy like Kendre Miller as well, who's fallen from RB 39 to RB 57. His coach doesn't seem to like him, Dennis Allen. I just think he could be – I don't think they're going to cut him. Obviously, they didn't. He started off the year on IR. But Kendre Miller, guys, is the perfect example of you got to capitalize, especially on running backs, when their value is potentially at their all-time high. It's so hard to know when to capitalize on assets. But Kendre Miller is one of those where we need to learn our lesson. He gets drafted and he comes in as like a top 25 running back. Even after his bad season, this is what I don't get. Even after the season of doing nothing, absolutely nothing, where he was injured to start the year and then did nothing. He had like one decent looking game, but he had 150 yards rushing last year, guys. Maybe it's because, he had 13 carries and 73 yards and a touchdown. Maybe that's why, people were overvaluing him. Even after that season of doing nothing, he got as high as the RB22 in the offseason. I don't understand that. I was telling people, you need to sell this guy. Like, I understand if he was RB35, RB40, and you're anticipating that he's going to take over the role, but you got to be careful how high you move these guys up. He was RB22 doing nothing. We should have sold him, and now he's at the point of like, the coach doesn't like him. He can't stay healthy. If he does nothing this year, Kendre Miller is a dead asset. Absolute dead asset. Marshawn Lloyd. He's kind of taken that Kendre Miller route, guys, a little bit. I like Marshawn Lloyd. I liked him a lot coming out of college. But he can't stay healthy. He's already nicked up. Now, he avoided the IR, which is good, but he's still going to miss a couple of games. He has fumbling issues. He can't hold on to the ball. He feels like a very volatile asset who we were so high on, as you see here. Got as high as RB32. I think he was even higher than that. Let me just double check. Now, that's about high to mid-30s is kind of where he was. He gets hurt. He doesn't do much in year one. He comes in and fumbles the ball. He's going to sink down. There's some concerns about whether or not he can be the main guy if he can hold on to the ball. I just hope he doesn't take the Kendre Miller route. I like Marshawn Lloyd. I think he was one of the more talented running backs in this draft class. The team seems to like him, but the fact of the matter is, guys, if he can't hold on to the ball, he's not going to get onto the field. Not for the Packers. They're trying to – they have playoff Super Bowl aspirations. Najee Harris has fallen 6 spots, which is a little strange because you would think he wouldn't have fallen with the Jalen Warren injury. Not really sure why. I actually think Najee is going to have a pretty decent season. Again, I keep talking about this with running backs. There's too many running backs out there that people look beyond 2024. They look beyond the coming season. Most of the running backs like 20 and below, even maybe 15 and below, you should be approaching from a season-to-season base. What are you going to do for me in this coming season? And people make that mistake and they overvalue some guys because they're valuing them in 2025 or 2026, and we shouldn't be. Najee Harris, to me, is going to have a low-end RB2 season at worst. That's kind of his floor if he stays healthy. So I kind of like Najee Harris in both redraft and in Dynasty. Moving on, Ramondre Stevenson. Ramondre Stevenson is falling 8 spots. Don't really understand this one either. I didn't understand when Ramondre Stevenson jumped up 7 spots after he signed his contract, because it's like, well, the reason why we didn't like Ramondre Stevenson is because he was poor last year. He didn't have a good 2023 season, and he's on the Patriots, and we don't like the Patriots for fantasy football. Nothing changed there. He gets his contract. We move him up 7 spots. Now he drops down 4 spots. Why? Not really sure why. Not really sure why. I think Ramondre, as like Najee, he's a low-end RB2, and I think that's kind of his floor if he stays healthy. Zamir White. This is another one that feels a little Kendre Miller-ish. Like, Zamir White, again, got as high as RB22. And I've kind of gone back and forth on Zamir White. I've seen the logic and the path to him being an RB2 in fantasy. And then I also see like, maybe we should also be selling high on this guy because we don't really know what we have. We saw a 3 or 4 game stretch last year where he got incredible volume and he was good for fantasy because of the volume. That being said, he got as high as RB18. That's as high as he's been. That being said, we don't know what we have with Zamir White, and how they're using him in preseason is a little bit concerning. Like, if he is supposed to be their bell cow running back, they're leaving him in way too long for bell cow running backs and guys that you are sure about. If you feel certain that Zamir White is your guy, he shouldn't be playing that deep into preseason when other starters are out. And Zamir White was. I'm concerned about Zamir White. I see the path for him being a low-end RB2. I also see the path for him just being like Alexander Madison last year, where like we have overevaluate and we overvalue these guys and then say, oh crap, they're just not very good at football. Moving on to the wide receivers, Christian Kirk has moved down 4 spots, not a huge drop. Wide receivers, in terms of how they drop, they're a little less volatile than running backs, deservedly so. Christian Kirk has fallen. It says RB 36. It should be wide receiver 36. I forgot to change that out for a couple of these. But RB 36, wide receiver 36 to wide receiver 40. I'm slightly concerned about Christian Kirk and just like Brian Robinson being the real deal and just being super good at football and just like making Christian Kirk a little bit of an afterthought. Not Christian Kirk not getting the volume that we're expecting him to get, which is where he is valuable. And also him not playing on on 2 wide receiver sets is concerning. Christian Kirk was off the field now it's only 1 preseason game, but he was off the field in 2 wide receiver sets. It was Brian Thomas and Gabe Davis, and that's severely going to limit his upside this year. And if you remember last year, the same thing happened week 1. It was Zay Jones and Calvin Ridley on 2 wide receiver sets, and Christian Kirk had a bad week, and everyone freaked out. And then Zay Jones got hurt, and Christian Kirk was out there, and he was having a good season. Now they seem to be reverting back to this, oh, you're only out there on 3 wide receiver sets, and that's concerning. That's going to hurt his upside. Just be mindful of that. Jahan Dotson. Man, I like Jahan Dotson coming out of college. He flashed his rookie year. Oh, my gosh. He's getting close to just being a dead asset. This is what happens. Like, you get traded to the Eagles, and sorry, you're behind A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, and probably Dallas Goedert. That's not good. Not good at all. Sucks. Like Jahan Dotson. Think he's a talented player, but he seems to be going the route of like an Elijah Moore, to be honest. Like, and even wide receivers are not immune from this. Keep that in mind with a guy like Jaden Reed comes to mind. Feels a little bit like a Jahan Dotson career path in like, oh, he came out and looked really good because he scored a lot of touchdowns, but then he could disappoint and then he fall. Like, just keep that in mind with these wide receivers. Troy Franklin. I put wide receiver 60 to wide receiver 60. Nice job. Let me see where he has fallen. Wide receiver 60 to wide receiver 69. He's fallen 9 spots. Has not looked good in training camp and preseason. For a guy that a lot of people thought could be a high second round pick into the draft, went in the 4th round. The opportunity is there. Like, you are paired with your college quarterback. The best wide receiver on the team is Cortland Sutton. And then who? They let go of Tim Patrick. Like, who's the wide receiver 2 and 3 on this team? The opportunity's there. If Troy Franklin doesn't at least flash this year, he's going to plummet in value. Because from our perspective, it's like, well, it's not like you're behind DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. You're behind Cortland Sutton and who? Like, who's the number 2 for the Broncos? Josh Reynolds. You can't beat out Josh Reynolds. You're going to plummet in value. Absolutely plummet in value. Moving along, Ladd McConkey. Again, I put running back. Wide receiver 28 to wide receiver 31. Not a big drop here. I do think there's some concerns with McConkey on are they going to use him on the outside? If they're not going to use him in 2 wide receiver sets, if he's only going to be a slot wide receiver on a team that we don't expect to pass too much, then he's going to have a very, very limited upside. I hope they do use him on the outside, but it seemingly going to be Josh Palmer and DJ Shark in 2 wide receiver sets. So that's a little bit concerning for Ladd McConkey year 1. And then Michael Pittman. Michael Pittman Jr., wide receiver 24 to wide receiver 20 to wide receiver 24. I just messed up on a lot of these graphics. My apologies, guys. He's fallen 4 spots. I think it's a little bit because of Anthony Richardson and how bad he looked. I will tell you this about Anthony Richardson. There's some players that they need a little bit of madness to be good. They can't have the structure he was terrible in 7-on-7 drills is what they were saying. And that's a little bit more structured. You're not going to be You're not going to be you're going to have pass rushers. You're not going to be running the ball. You're not going to be ad-libbing. He was bad in preseason, right? Because he's not going to be ad-libbing as much because don't get hurt, dude. But in real games, when he has to kind of scramble around and ad-lib, that's where he could shine the most. And I think Pittman is still going to be okay and be a very big target hog for this team. You do have to pay the price now for it a little bit, but I'm a little bit worried about Pittman's upside. I still think he's a low-end wide receiver 2 at worst, and probably closer to like a top 18 guy. And then tight ends, not a whole lot of movement here. One thing I will say about Cole Kmet, who's moved down from tight end 14 to tight end 18, I am terrified of the Chicago Bears tight end rotation and tight end room. They're using Gerald Everett way too much, who, by the way, Shane Waldron, who is the offensive coordinator for the Chicago Bears, he spent time as the offensive coordinator for the Los Angeles Rams and the offensive coordinator for the Seattle Seahawks. Guess who was his tight end all that time during his time with the Rams and Seahawks? It was Gerald Everett. The only time he didn't have Gerald Everett was this last year when Gerald Everett was a Charger, right? Or maybe the last 2 years, right? That Gerald Everett was a Charger. Was it the last 2 years that Everett was a Charger? I think so. Yeah, last 2 years. But anyways, he spent a lot of time with Gerald Everett as his main tight end. So the tight end rotation's gross. It's what they did in Seattle with Shane Waldron, and they used 3 guys. They used Colby Parkinson, Will Dissly, and Noah Fant, and none of them were relevant. So you combine them, they're decent. None of them were relevant individually. I'm out completely on this tight end room. I don't want to draft them. I don't want them in fantasy. Just completely out. And then Chigakonkwo has fallen. I'll tell you this about Chigakonkwo. He feels like the type of tight end that with a new coaching staff coming in, he could easily get replaced. If you could sell Chigakonkwo for almost anything right now, I think I would. Yes, is he a good pass catcher? Yes. But now with a team that has DeAndre Hopkins, Calvin Ridley, and Tyler Boyd, and Tony Pollard, and Tajay Spears, they might not value a pass catching tight end. They might value a tight end that will block. And Chigakonkwo does not do that. I'm a little bit concerned that Chigakonkwo, he feels like the type of tight end that's just going to, with a new coaching staff, a new system coming in, he's going to become nothing. So there you have it, guys. Those are our Dynasty fallers, the biggest fallers over the last 30 days. We will be back talking about real football, which is great to hear. Appreciate you all, and I will catch you all in the next video.